Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session at the Shed.
That's SHED, the Smoke and Herbal Education Destination. We are shedding some light on that good shit.
As always, we are your co-hosts. My name is Nimbe, and I am joined by my beautiful partner.
Hi, my name is Janaea. Thanks, babe, for introducing me. We're happy to be back.
Yeah, excited to be back and talking with you today, especially because today is
we got a good one.
Special episode dedicated to something very special to a lot of cannabis connoisseurs and users out there. So yeah, sit back and get ready. You know, if you need to get yourself sorted, do what you need to do.
Prep.
That's it.
Let's get some theme music.
Let's go. So how are you feeling today, babe?
I'm feeling good. This is a special episode.
Yes, it is.
Because we're doing a tribute, obviously, to something very special to cannabis. Do you want to let everyone know what that is?
Yeah. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of you already know, it is 420.
It is a special literally once in a lifetime, like 420 month long celebration.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so the whole month of April this year stood for 420, which is something that I don't think we will ever see again.
No, probably not in our lifetime.
No. So yeah, I just that's great.
Yeah, so we needed to hop on and just come up and talk to you all about 420, you know, the importance of 420 and how and why it resonates so much towards cannabis culture.
And I do gotta say, just before we get into it, I know we're gonna wrap it around to us. At the end, we're gonna talk about us, but cannabis culture and 420 is like so different down in the southern hemisphere.
No, that's true. It varies so much.
So I think it'll be interesting to give our viewers, I said viewers, but it's a podcast.
Lol.
To give our listeners that like different perspective on 420.
Yeah, especially coming from our own backgrounds and, you know, because 420 is an American sort of slang.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it apparently originated. So
let's find out.
Exactly. We do have a bit of a story to kick off our sesh.
I really haven't heard, you know, this is probably like one of the most believable ones. The story that is that I've heard people talk about the most.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few different variations of the 420 origins, but yeah, we've really only heard one consistent story that has this much detail, and yeah, we can't wait to share it with you. I know you, we just reread up on it recently, so we're going to try and relay it as best as possible here, and yeah, but that's pretty much the story that we're about to tell you guys is pretty much the 420 origin that we believe in, I guess.
Yeah, well, like, I really haven't heard of these people before, and like, I've only really heard of the name, like the numbers 420, but I did have no idea, you know, what was behind it, and the creators or where it all came from. So,
in saying that, the people that we're going to talk about, the creators, are still alive, actually.
Yes,
and
they
still claim this story to the day, which they should. I mean, if you made it, hell.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous because they actually have everything, you know, all the pieces that we'll talk about later on. They've got all the evidence to back
As in,
it up.
everything from this story still exists, except perhaps the treasure.
Unfortunately.
So, yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so this story dates back to the 1970s, right? That's a while back. I don't know how long ago is that.
The only thing I know about the 70s is like the hippie generation, but
Yeah.
I don't even think that's correct. So that's how far my knowledge goes.
Anyway.
Yeah, 1970s, and I assume we're in 1970s California.
Yeah. So I was in California. They were all high school students, so they went to school in California.
Buddies. This group of, just this friend group.
Regular schmegular mates, pretty much.
Squatting up.
So, and they all enjoyed, cannabis and pot back in the day.
And they had a name for themselves, did they not?
Yeah, this group of mates. They call themselves the Waldos.
The Waldos.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, of all names, I'm sure you all had stupid school names, and but they do still call themselves that.
The Waldos, yeah. I think I had a pretty funny
yeah.
group name back in high school, but
I'm sure all of our stupid names came from school.
Yeah. But these people stuck with theirs, and good thing they did, because it's so iconic.
It is, though.
Yeah. So anyway, the Waldos, a group of mates.
What's up with these kids? Obviously, they smoke a little bit.
They smoked a lot. They smoked a lot of bit. And they were pretty well known. They got around socially.
Right.
Yep. And so they had this mate, right? And he was apparently he was in the US Coast Guard, or he was a lifeguard or something with the government or with the authorities.
A little bit of importance there. A little bit of importance.
And he was a stoner, right? He had cannabis crops.
What a mix.
Yeah, what a mix. It's like you wouldn't know, like, crazy, right?
Hey, exactly. And that's the thing about cannabis. And the longer I've been involved in the industry, the more I've come to find that just stoners are just stoners, and they're going to come in all the shapes and sizes, and you can never pick them out of a crowd.
And they're everyday people, you could see someone suit and tie and bloody smokes more pot than you do. But anyway.
Yeah, anyhow.
So their mate is a lifeguard, sold pot, or he grew pot.
Right.
So yeah, all of a sudden he started to get really paranoid about his crops, right?
A bit antsy.
Yeah. So he gives the map, he gives these mates, he gives the Waldos the map leading to this supposed
his
cannabis treasure.
His grow farm, mini farm thing, so he calls it.
Supposedly
it's supposed to be big.
Supposedly that's where the map is supposed to lead them to.
This holy grail of cannabis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get this map.
Where was I?
The Coast Guard gives them this map.
Yeah, he gives them the map because he's freaked out, he's paranoid. So they're like, whatever, man, we'll take it off you, sure. We'll find this weed.
Exactly. And they're like, obviously, super excited.
Oh my god.
I mean, how would you feel? You just got handed.
I would be over the moon. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they get the treasure map. They're like, sweet, okay. So obviously they can't just go straight, go 24 hours, 7 days a week looking for this treasure because they're at school, right?
Okay.
So, they're busy, and then they try their best to do this after school, after school, obviously, when they're free, before they go home and
So they needed a time to meet up, and because they were so busy after school, they just decided that 420 was the best time for all of them. And the place they decided to meet was this statue outside, in some courtyard or whatever.
Yeah.
And they decided, obviously, because it's cannabis involved and it's a cannabis related map, that they needed a code, and that code would be 420 Lewis. So 420 obviously stood for the time. Lewis was the name of the statue man.
And where they would meet up, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it pretty much was just, time and location and when to meet up.
That was the birth, so they say, of 420. That's the first time they had used it exclusively. And another fun fact, just while we're there at the statue, that Lewis statue was supposedly, and you can look this up, I'm sure, but he was supposedly born on the 20th of April, because Americans switch the dates around.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's
just
weird.
another coincidence. So,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah. And, yeah, so they would meet up there every day after school.
Yep.
And jump in a car, yeah?
Yeah, and, knowing the Waldos, obviously hop in the car, get super smashed, super baked,
As you do.
as you do before they went out on this, awesome, amazing treasure hunt,
And it was really a quest, because also supposedly the map that they were given was a little bit hard to decipher or read or comprehend. So while they were all baked and roaming around the streets and bushes, looking for this holy grail of cannabis, it took them quite a while, because it was difficult for them.
Yeah, you can even hop onto their website and have a look, check out that actual map that you were given. It does not look anything like your standard map.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen photos of it,
I have not.
and it's crazy. It
I
does
should
not look
Google
like
it
a map.
right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a look and give you guys my live reaction. What do I type in? Waldo's map, eh?
Yep. Give that a go.
No. I can't find it. But anyway, I am actually really interested in looking at it. But you did have a look at it.
Yeah, and it did not look anything like an ordinary map. No, it looked like a painting.
Do you think that if you were handed this and told that it would lead you to an abundance of weed, would you have believed him?
Yeah, quite possibly, because this guy is yet again, he was like, he was an adult, he was older than them, obviously.
Yeah.
He was, in lifeguard or whatever.
Old enough to join some sort of armed forces.
And, he grew cannabis and all that, so obviously you trust this guy and you'd be like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. But nevertheless, that is how 420 began. That's how 420 came about. This quest for cannabis. Unfortunately, though, they did not ever find it.
No, they never ended up finding this treasure, actually.
I'm sure all of us have assumed that it was raided long before they had found it.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, it still provides a really, really cool story and a really, really cool origin for 420, which has blown up, which, by the way, is also a part of this story.
It is.
Because you did mention that the Waldos were quite social.
Yes, they knew a lot of people, and they got around pretty well.
Right.
And a few of them friends, I think, were a part of the Grateful Dead, the band, and they were mates with everyone. Like, they were mates with certain members of the band. And
there was a theater.
Yes.
In their area, in their neighborhood, that they would hang out there quite regularly. And
it was a slang that got passed around often, like when they wanted to go smoke some weed, and they didn't want certain people knowing what they were talking about. They'd just be like, hey, 420.
Okay.
So they just go smoke weed, and then other people saw it and then followed, and then it was just something that was firstly passed around within the hippie community and like within just underground wise.
As cannabis was.
Yes, as cannabis was. And then, as the story goes on to say, by some, movement of faith or whatever, the editor for High Times magazine was actually passed a flyer. He was handed a flyer by a hippie.
Okay.
Yeah, and then on the flyer it had 420 at this spot. So like they were all gonna go smoke up at 420 on the date at this spot. And then that was the flyer he was given. He was invited. They were inviting all stoners. Come along.
Right.
And that's what he saw, and he was like, "Oh, 420." So that's how it was blown up and made global. Was that
really? I didn't actually hear that. I had heard that the bands that would regulate this theater that they would go to, would take 420 the phrase on tour with them, and so as they were going on tour across America, obviously they'd be looking for weed and they'd be wanting to smoke after their shows. So
certainly,
they go backstage and they're like, "Oh, 420, anyone? 420, 420," and everyone, of course, is like, "What the fuck does that mean?"
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so that's how I heard the spread occurred.
But it makes sense that like you're spreading like both ways, Yeah, and it's like because it just so many people were part of it.
Both things are true.
Yeah, it just spread really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, and why wouldn't it? It's catchy, and it makes sense. But a lot of other people associate, a lot of other things with 420, and I've heard a lot of other 420 kind of related stories, like 420 is the perfect time to smoke.
Oh yeah.
Like 420 is the sum of whatever kind of maths and cannabis related.
Yes, some weird maths, shit like that.
Or famous cannabis celebrities, if you multiply the letters in the name or something like that, you're going to get 420. But I love how popular culture really, really adopted this phrase.
Yeah.
And made it so popular.
And to this day, it is like still booming. The reference is universal.
It is. Any country. And that's what we were saying before about the kind of difference between American popular cannabis culture and South Pacific cannabis culture, and how even though 420 will hold separate meanings for us, it's still a thing.
No, definitely. And so I guess that was your 420 origin story. That was the one that we heard and the one we know of.
If you've never heard one before, you're happy. We're happy to give you this one.
But if you do have a different one, we're happy to hear about it. So like drop it down in the comments or like hit us up in the DMs.
We love all of the cannabis stories and memorabilia. Anything
to do with like cannabis history or references such as that, it's exciting.
Especially history, though. I think history is a really, really important part of education and knowledge.
Yeah.
And everyone always says that it's important to know where you come from.
Yes.
Especially us being as cultural as we are.
Yeah.
I love learning about cannabis history.
Yeah.
And especially early before Prohibition days.
Yeah.
Oh, really interesting. And this origin story alone is very interesting. Yep. And just to have things like that exist, because I'm not sure something like this would happen today, It's not like the cannabis culture has slowed since then.
No.
But just to still have things like that happen back then is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And to have cannabis so prominent, exactly like it is today, is really cool. And I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Have you, though, heard any other interesting 420?
No, I haven't. I've only heard little things like, like what you were saying earlier, and 420 was like given because it was just like it had other weird references to it, but
Right.
nothing else really was like as solid
Yeah.
as this one.
Exactly. And I guess with anything this special, there are always going to be people who try and fit, that thing to their story. But yeah, that's the origin story we heard, and that's the one we're probably going to share always. I don't think it's going to change.
I certainly think that too, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really happy for them, they like created something sick.
They did. That's so cool,
They created an international language.
Pretty much, hey.
It's amazing. Like when we really think about it, it's like 420, like 3 numbers.
And it was like the cool thing about it is it wasn't like when you say the numbers or when you speak of 420, you don't think of them or as them owning it. It's all about, you think of cannabis, right?
Yeah.
And you make it your numbers, like you make it your
Exactly
thing.
And your slang.
Just because it's all about the cannabis that ties you together, that makes it yours, which is like cool about it.
Yeah. And it's just something else that connects us all.
Exactly.
I mean, like, obviously cannabis is its own international language, but like for us as humans to have something else to reference that is like just connects us on another level.
Next level.
So yeah. What was I saying before? Oh, I was talking about South Pacific cannabis culture and how it was so like different, obviously, because myself growing up, I did grow up in Australia, but I'm Maori and I grew up around a lot of Maoris. So as a child, cannabis was referenced a lot, like in music and like conversation. Not that I was aware. But 420 rarely came up, like rarely, especially because I feel that when we talk about cannabis from the South Pacific point of view, we more relate cannabis to like lifestyle things and like more urban artists, I guess, that didn't really come from a 420 kind of environment.
So it was sort of like your own culture tried to create its own 420 pretty much.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but it sort of didn't know it was a 420 sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't really hear 420 referenced until I was probably like late high school.
Yeah.
And that wasn't until I started listening to like rap music and hip hop.
And how long ago was that? Was it? That wasn't too long ago.
Out me? Are you trying to out my age? Ouch.
I was trying to tell.
No, I would say like 2010.
All right.
Maybe that's like 10 years ago. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, it would be the same for me as well, because similar to growing up outside of Australia and in a very sort of developing, not like a second, third world country. A lot of our influences came from the Western societies and America and all, like Australia as well. But yeah, 420 was a slang that I rarely had heard of growing up, and it was always like my only connections to cannabis and marijuana was Bob Marley, reggae, you know? And that was all I knew about. Like, I didn't know that cannabis had another reference to it.
And I think Bob Uncle Bob is like the sole cannabis reference
Yeah.
for the whole South Pacific. Like,
Yep.
if it was not for reggae music,
Straight up.
you know what I mean? And especially if I know this from a Maori perspective,
Yeah.
like every household in New Zealand, I know,
Yeah.
would be involved in cannabis in some way, but would also play Bob Marley like
Yeah.
on repeat, like play reggae music on repeat. And it's the same with you guys, you know?
Yep. So he was really the early sort of influencer, or that,
Absolutely.
you know, that statement of cannabis piece was Bob Marley and his music and the colors.
I
And,
can just see the flag, the
yeah.
red, yellow, and green flag
Yeah.
with the cannabis leaf on it and his face.
Exactly. Pretty much, and that was pretty much it.
And that was
You
our
know?
childhood.
Yeah.
That was absolutely my childhood.
Pretty much same here. And then it didn't really change until like the early 2000s. But I'd say for me as well.
Exactly, but it was that whole kind of pop culture like sweep where America just like took over the charts and the
Yeah.
box office, and like everything was flooded. I remember because I went from like watching ABC Kids, you know what I mean, to like watching Disney.
You're watching like MTV or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So apart from Bob Marley, who else was the next, or who else was the other great influence to cannabis culture?
I mean, I gotta say personally, all my favorite cannabis inspirations are musical, which I'm sure a lot of people, that's the same for a lot of people. And I didn't really find another cannabis artist until I heard Afro Man. Of course, he's like the gold standard. And I'm pretty sure I heard him like early high school, that 2010
Yeah.
2009. And that's also when I really started to get into rap music, and so I would go back to like 90s Snoop,
listen to the
you know what
older
I mean?
ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Like more Afro
NWA.
Man. Yeah.
all of that, Biggie and Tupac and all that. So yeah, I guess we kind of did our own research in that sense for like popular cannabis references and all of that.
Yeah, in the different sort of like in music, in different sorts of music.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because that's what really was easy to flow through to.
Especially us as, you know, we were children, so we
Yeah.
didn't really have access to much. We couldn't watch
Yeah.
those, you know, M-rated movies or whatever.
Nah.
So we just had to listen to music and
Yeah.
find our own
Yeah.
vibes, and we did. So yeah, Afro Man was a big one for me. Did you
I would say
found Afro Man, huh?
I'm just trying to think of when I started listening to all of like rap music in general. But yeah, I think it was like the same. Because
Yeah.
I'd listen to Snoop and that, but I didn't really catch on to anything. I was just saying
Right.
until like I really heard Afro Man. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wow, okay. And then go back and listen, have a better listen. And I
Yes.
sort of got to understand and really put names and pictures
Yeah.
together.
And you're like connecting all the dots.
Yeah.
And especially because like when you're younger, you'd like listen to the song and then you'd like watch the music video and
Yeah.
then, you
And
know,
then
like watch like interviews and
Yeah.
like all this other stuff, and you get more
Yeah.
and more into their content.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and now, you know, as we get older and older, you just follow Herb on Facebook and you
Yeah.
know, you just always send me.
And especially with today, like laws, regulations are like, it's like pretty much second nature in America. Like cannabis now, it's not legal. There's not much negative stigma to it. So it's like so open, and it like allows us and younger generations like after us to be really immersed in cannabis through Facebook, like Herb and like so many other online pages and that. So yeah, now it's like everywhere, and you know, it's just right in your face. But yeah, so different how times change.
Yeah, and you mentioned before how the South Pacific was really able to take 420 and make it their own
Yeah.
in a way, and I feel like that's the reason why we have so many like red, green and yellow 420 shirts and hats and merch and all of this, because they just really found a way to take it
Yes.
and market it to their audience, and it's just flooded the market.
Absolutely, it's taken over so much that like you see how much it's influenced people with their music, and it's like just allowed people to really express themselves through that avenue.
And just going back to that, about how we were discussing how 420 kind of ended our lives, I really did forget to mention that movies really played a huge part in in my relationship, especially with 420, because I really got that visual representation of like, oh, that's what it really means, and that's what they really do.
That's what he's really talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And like seeing them like go through the whole process of asking or like explaining even what 420 was,
or even that action of that how they said it and how they used it really drew us a clear picture. Like,
and then like with additions of like facial expression and hand gestures, and then they just spark up a blunt straight after, and then you like just click. So I just really feel like I had to mention movies because they really did, now that I think about it, play a huge part in me, forming a relationship with cannabis.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say the same for myself as well. Right. The movies really helped get that 420 visual across to the audience in a very like easy way.
I think we said something before about like subliminal like messages, and movies and watching TV was just so a part of our daily lives, especially as children, that it just flowed so nicely.
Yes, hey, and exactly 420 was huge, like subliminally blah blah, got me tongue twisted now.
That was
but yeah, 420 was used in a lot of movie advertising, even like some cartoons, even like they reference 420, but a lot of people didn't know.
I mean, just the movie industry on its own is such a huge tool for marketing, and a lot of spin-offs, merchandise and all those things come from movies. So yeah, it played a huge role for me personally anyway, in my life, bringing cannabis into my life. And forever grateful. We love it.
We love it, and we couldn't be happier. Hey,
exactly. And you know what, I could just leave it at that.
I think we can.
It's been a nice talk. I mean, 420, the month is almost over, so we had to get in there, obviously, before our time was up, and just get a little episode, a little sesh going for y'all. And we hope you liked it. We hope you enjoyed it. It was a nice talk.
Yeah, and if you do want to hop back online and like have a read on for yourselves, you can jump on Google and research the origins of 420.
Or just re-listen to this.
Even better.
On that note, thank you guys so much. I mean, I just want to mention as well before we sign off, follow us on all our socials. We'll be sure to chuck all the links in the description down below. But hey, we love talking to you. If you have any requests or anything like that, let us know in the comments. And yeah, I've been so happy to be here.
Same, hey, and I can't wait for us to get back on air and start talking to you again, and who knows what we have for the next session at the shed.
With that being said, my name's Janaya. Thank you so much for joining us for another session at the shed.
I've been Nims. Peace
and love.